Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and in today's video I wanted to talk about this incredible discovery from October of 2016 that established that we actually have quite a lot more galaxies in our universe than we thought before. Today you're going to learn why and how all of this has been found, and you're going to possibly be surprised by the new number. Welcome to What the Math. One of the most fundamental questions in science, or at least in space science, is essentially how many galaxies are there really? Now we know that we've already changed the approximate number of stars in our own galaxy from about 100 billion to possibly 2 to 300 billion, but we've also just recently discovered that our previous assumption that there were something like about 100 billion galaxies out there has actually been incorrect. Now in this video what we're going to do is we're going to use Space Engine to fly through all of these different galaxies in the randomly generated or procedurally generated universe of Space Engine, and then we're going to possibly go to one of them at the farthest reaches of universe and maybe even land on a planet. Now the thing is that based on the data from the 1990s Hubble deep field images, we estimated that there's approximately 100 billion galaxies. This has been true for about several decades now, but the new data indicates that it's actually incorrect. And so this new study by Christopher Consolis from University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom shown that basically this number is something like 90% too short. In other words, he actually estimated that there is actually closer to, or possibly even more than, 1 trillion galaxies out there that we just don't even see. In other words, we only see about 10% of all of the galaxies, and about 90% of the galaxies are not yet visible to us, because essentially the universe is expanding so fast that some galaxies are still hidden from us. And to estimate this number, what they used is a kind of a really complex 3D simulation of the original Hubble images, where they made a 3D map of the galaxies from something like 13 billion years ago, and they tried to estimate how many galaxies there were originally. And then they also used a very interesting mathematical model which basically inferred the existence of these so-called invisible galaxies that are still too far away for us to be seen, but will be seen sometime in the future as they come into the view, because of the fact that the expansion of our universe is actually faster than the speed of light. So by the time that the light gets to us from those faraway galaxies, they'll obviously be farther away, but we'll be actually finally able to see them. Now what's really surprising is that basically 90% of all of the galaxies in our universe are essentially invisible to us right now. They are definitely there because we can kind of estimate the number of total galaxies using these ancient images from 13 billion years ago and estimate how many galaxies were actually created in this early universe. But we just can't see them anymore because they're just way too far away. And this was of course because of the expansion of the universe following the Big Bang. And also following this analysis, the scientists were also able to show that the universe is essentially restructuring in a top-down fashion, meaning that smaller galaxies combine into bigger galaxies and create larger and larger structures. So, for example, our own galaxy, the Milky Way, may have actually been created by smaller dwarf galaxies, like, for example, large and small Magellanic Cloud next to our own galaxy. And this may have actually been the result of combination of various dwarf galaxies that there used to be quite a lot of, and now there's not so many, but there's still something like 1 trillion galaxies in total out there. And the fact that the galaxies are decreasing in number, in other words, the fact that smaller galaxies combine into larger galaxies, also kind of gives us a solution to the so-called all-burst paradox, about which I talked about in a previous video, or basically the idea that, you know, the sky is actually dark. And why is it dark? Why? There should be stars everywhere. If the universe is so big and so large and so infinite, there should be stars at every single point. But there are a lot of dark patches in the sky, and these dark patches can be explained by the fact that all of those miniature galaxies have actually been combined into larger galaxies and have left some space in our universe dark. And on top of that, even though there's technically a galaxy in every single point of the sky, most of these galaxies are actually invisible to us because basically we don't really see them yet. There's also a possibility that a lot of these galaxies have been redshifted and our telescopes cannot detect them. And also the universe has quite a lot of various dust and various gas flying around that actually absorbs light from various galaxies as well, and essentially that light never reaches us. And so because of all of this, the night sky is actually dark, and this is sort of one of the explanations to the so-called Olbers paradox. And of course, all of these findings also imply a very, very important thing about our own universe. And this particular finding essentially tells us that our universe is actually also evolving, just like everything else in the world. So initially, obviously, there were a lot of smaller galaxies flying around and interacting with one another. And then they eventually combine into larger and larger galaxies. And this would actually create galaxies like Andromeda, galaxies like the Milky Way, and possibly even larger galaxies in the future. So maybe in a few billion years, or possibly a few 100 billion years, there's going to be only a few very, very, very ultra-massive galaxies that are essentially left. But for all we know, maybe this will never happen and something else will occur. But I guess what's important is that the universe is constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, and these smaller galaxies constantly combine into larger and larger objects. And so because of all of this, we can now make an assumption that the universe is actually 10 times more populated, or I guess more massive than we assumed, and that there are actually essentially 10 times more galaxies than we thought there were. And so the previous number of about 100 billion or possibly 200 billion galaxies has now been reworked to about 1 trillion or possibly even more. In other words, there is so many galaxies that even if you were to visit each of these galaxies for only a minute, if you were to basically go to each of these galaxies for a minute, it would actually take you something like 2 million years to essentially visit every single galaxy. So basically that is quite a long time, considering that you're actually there for only 1 minute. This is how many galaxies we think there are today. And anyway, that's all I wanted to mention in this video, and hopefully you learned something from it, and hopefully you enjoyed watching this little space engine simulation with a bit of a universe sandbox in the background. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Please subscribe if you still haven't, share this video with someone who you think may enjoy these videos, and consider supporting this channel on Patreon. And also don't forget that there's a Facebook, Twitter, and of course Snapchat as well, where you can always reach me, or possibly just follow my silliness on Snapchat, because I am also kind of secretly addicted to it right now as well. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Game you later, and as always, bye bye.